If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. This statement has reverberated through time and has even been stamped on the edges of the £2 British coin. My name is Dr. Lolu, and in the spirit of this statement, do I request that you join me on the segment which I call an opinionated book review. Here we'll be digging into books written by giants, and we will be expanding on their opinions, so that you too may one day stand.
Station with distinction.
AP Radio UK.
Hello, my name is Dr. Lolu. Welcome to this segment. It's called the Opinionated Book Review. The beauty of a book review which is opinionated is that we can also always add our own opinions to the wisdom within the book. Mind you, even though I will be the only one speaking in this segment, I challenge you to go back and read the book in which we are going to be talking about so that you can form your own opinions and then grow from the wisdom you have learnt from the book. A famous author once said, "God will never bring about any of his great works without coming through your personal faith." This author is called Dr. Paul Yonggi, and we are going to be reviewing his book called The Fourth Dimension. Dr. Paul, who is now retired, used to pastor the largest church in South Korea and one of the largest churches in the world. He wrote this book, The Fourth Dimension, to teach people how to use the measure of faith which has been dealt to every believer so as to bring into existence that which they hoped for. There are 6 interesting chapters in this book, but for the sake of time, I would only touch on the first chapter. This chapter is described as the law of faith, according to the words of Dr. Chu. We're going to be going for a short break now, and when we come back, we'll be delving into the words of this great author.
You are always watching over me. Your eyes are always on me. You are always watching over me. Your eyes are always on me. No one else can do the things you do for me, oh God. Most High God, owner of my world, I worship you. No one else can do the things you do for me, oh God. Most High God, owner of my world, I worship you. You are the most high God, always I, and can never be low. You are the most high God, you are always I, and can never be low. Yeah, 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 oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
I am yours truly, Oladimeji Olayemi, and you are tuned to the only station with distinction, AP Radio UK. You are blessed.
You were awesome in this place, mighty God. And you were awesome in this place, Abba Father, you are worthy of my praise. Lord, to you my heart I raise. You are awesome in this place, mighty God. Hello, I'm Dr. Lolu, and you're listening to AP Radio UK. It's the station with a distinction. Don't never forget, our God is able. Feel it. Welcome back. My name is Dr. Lolu, and this is the Opinionated Book Review. Before I go ahead, let me quickly explain what Dr. Q described as the fourth dimension. But please note, this is an opinionated review. Therefore, I would only speak based on my understanding of the concepts in this book. The first three dimensions of this world is the physical dimension that can be seen, smelt, and touched. But the fourth dimension, on the other hand, is the dimension of the spirit, which is able to recreate the things which can be seen from the things which cannot be seen. This is why spiritualists, Buddhists, and witches are able to attain a level of results. Therefore, when one is able to partner with the Holy Spirit through the human spirit, then such person will be able to walk in a superior power through this fourth dimension. He briefly gave an example of how to walk in such power using a principle he called the law of faith. This he documented in chapter 1. Before we go into the principles of the law of faith, I would like to reverberate in regards to a story which Dr. Q gave before he went ahead to talk about this law. You see, when he newly became born again, it was a very tough time in the days of South Korea. In those days, there was the Korean War. There was also the World War. And so poverty had ravaged the land so much that it was difficult to even imagine the lifestyle that we are seeing today. So in those days, Dr. Q had a room which was totally bare. Nothing except for a mat which he used in sleeping on. As at then, he was a young pastor, newly born again. So he obviously needed a chair, he needed a table, and he also needed a bicycle so as to transport himself from place to place while preaching the gospel. He had prayed for so long in regards to these three things. He had prayed, "Oh Lord, give me a chair, give me a table, and give me a bicycle." For months, he prayed. And before you knew it, obviously, days had turned into weeks, and weeks came into months, and these months were becoming years. So he went back to God, and he started asking, why? Why is it that I have prayed concerning these three things, and yet I have seen nothing? And then God started opening his eyes. He started opening his eyes to the words of Apostle Paul, which he famously wrote in the book of Hebrews 11:1, where he defined faith as the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And then Dr. Paul was now told by God to be very objective in what he was asking for. And he took a pen and paper and wrote down what he actually needed. In those days, there were different kinds of chairs. There were wooden chairs, plastic chairs. There were chairs from Korea, there were chairs from China, and there were chairs from the USA. So the question that God asked him was this: my son, which of these chairs do you want? And then he started getting the message. So he wrote down the exact chair he wanted. He wanted a plastic chair which had rolling tires under and which could flip round and round. And he wanted the chair to be from the US. He also asked for a table, a wooden table, a strong and rigid one. And finally, he asked for a bicycle, also from the US, because the ones that were made in Korea at that time were not really strong. So he wanted one from US, and he wanted one with gears so that he could change the gears and moderate the speed. Nothing seemed to happen. But he found out that within a short space of time, what he was asking for came to pass. And there he was able to coin out the law of faith. So very quickly, I'm going to be explaining what he was talking about. Now, he broke down this law into 4 simple steps, which he extracted from the famous statements of Apostle Paul, recorded in Hebrews 11:1, where he defined faith as the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. According to Dr. Chu, the first step of the law of faith is to substantiate what you are hoping for by envisioning it as a clear-cut objective. This thing must be clear enough such that you can imagine it and see it in clear pictures. If possible, it should be time-bound, so that if it is not done within the period stated, you can always go back to God and ask if you have missed something. I know some people who have used this principle, people like Jacob in the Bible, who actually used this principle when he wanted to escape from Laban and start his own business. He created a picture of spotted animals, and that picture was everywhere where he was relaxing. And before you knew it, what he was hoping for, that the animals will give birth to spotted siblings or children rather, started happening. I know some of my mentor friends who were hoping for their business to rise to a particular level and wrote a check to themselves and pasted it on the wall. Now, this was them training their imaginations to be able to hope and to be able to substantiate the thing that they were hoping for. And speaking about hope, there comes the second step. The second step is to be sure that that is what you are hoping for. Because God does not like lukewarm people, according to Dr. Chu. Many people pray for something and forget about it before they even leave the church. This was something Dr. Chu observed. And he said that this was something that was frowned out by God, because hope is actually an emotion tied to a thought. And if that thought is what you are hoping for, then that is well appreciated by God. But if you are thinking about something lukewarmly and you have no emotions towards it, then God is not eager to bring it to pass, because it will be like the famous word of King Solomon: do not cast pearls before swines, because they will turn back and trample it down. And therefore, God does not like to give valuable things to people that do not value it. And still digging deep into the statement made by Paul, Apostle Paul, is the word evidence. Faith is the evidence. Now, so from there, Dr. Chu brought the third step, the evidence of things hoped for. That means after you have substantiated the thing that you are hoping for, and you are sure that your hope is intact, then the next thing is to go before God and get an evidence. A good example of an evidence is if you compare the statement made by Apostle Paul and the statement made by Prophet Isaiah. In the book of Isaiah, Prophet Isaiah made a statement concerning the Messiah. He said, by his stripes we are healed, because he was seeing a vision. But Apostle Peter, in the book of Peter, had an evidence of that, because he had dug into the Spirit of God, and it has been revealed to him. And there he made a statement and said, by his stripes we were healed, because at that point Jesus Christ had died. He had understood the word so much that it had become an evidence to him. And so he had seen into the Spirit to the point whereby the thing that he was hoping for had become an evidence. He had gotten the evidence of what he was hoping for. An evidence is like a receipt. So when you dig into God, God starts to give you words concerning that thing that you're hoping for. He starts to open the scripture to you, and he starts to build the faith in your heart such that you will start acting as if you have received it. And that's the third step, the step of evidence. Once the evidence is gotten in the presence of God and a level of peace has been achieved, then you start to speak. And this was what Jesus told his disciples. He said, if you have faith just like a mustard seed, he said, you will say unto this mountain, be thou removed and casted into the sea, and it shall obey you. That is the power of the spoken word, because you are speaking based on evidence. When you speak based on evidence, then you are speaking based on a rhema that you have received from God. And at that point, what you are doing is called the voice of God. The voice of God is your word wrapped up with the word of God. That is the voice of God. And that will never come back to God void. Then you will continually say it. You continually say the words that God has given to you concerning that thing that you are hoping for. As you continually say it, before long, that which you are hoping for will come to pass. Remember Abraham. God told Abraham, you are hoping for a child. Change your name from Abraham to Abraham, father of many nations. That was him speaking the word. And every time Sarah called him Abraham, he got closer and closer to giving birth to Isaac. If you check the chronicles of the Bible, you will find out that between the time that Abraham changed his name to Abraham and the time that he actually gave birth to Isaac was about 2 years, compared to the 25 years that he has been waiting for. Therefore, this principle is a very interesting principle because it has reverberated through the Bible. But Dr. Q was able to actually write it down in 4 simple steps. So I'm going to stop here for today. This is a very brilliant book, as you can all see. Although I have only gone through chapter 1 and a little of chapter 2, but I encourage you to go back and buy this book and go through it. And then you can actually glean through this wisdom as I have gleaned through it, and you can form your own opinion and indeed stand in the shoulder of this giant. This is still Opinionated Book Review, and this is AP Radio and MZ Radio from London.